I taught for about a year and a half until I decided, oh, mercy, the things I'm seeing happen in my classroom, I don't want my children to be part of.
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked Podcast. Oh my goodness, I am so excited you guys are with me. If you have been listening to the past couple of weeks of the podcast, you know why Cindy West is here. And many of you already know Cindy West because she has been on our podcast, I don't know how many times, at least 3 or 4.
I think so.
I don't know. It's been, I think 4 times. I think you've been on at least 4 times. And we are super excited to have her back this week because this is our Meet the Hosts. I don't think we're going to call it a series because it's not really a series, but if you listened to our Thanksgiving Day episode with Abby Ranella, that whole week we kind of led up to our big exciting announcement, what we had coming for the new year, big changes for the Schoolhouse Rocked ministry. And the big announcement that we made is that starting in the new year in 2025, I am no longer going to be hosting the podcast by myself, but we are going to have a team of hosts to join in hosting the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. And so every week it will be a different host, and I will still be hosting some, but God has been so faithful to provide exactly the women that we prayed for, that the Lord put on our hearts. We reached out to them and said, hey, what would you think about hosting the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast as part of a team? And they all said yes. And by God's grace, Cindy West from Our Journey Westward is one of them. And we're absolutely thrilled to have her on the hosting team of the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. So we're going to talk this week to her, get to know her a little bit better. But before we do, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, BJU Press Homeschool. For those looking for great biblical worldview curriculum, check out bjupresshomeschool.com. They've got something for every family, whatever grade, whatever ages, whatever subjects you're looking for. They've got something that will meet your needs, and you can do video-based learning, parent-led learning, whatever is best for you. They have something that will meet your needs. bjupresshomeschool.com. Well, Cindy, welcome back again to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. For those who maybe not, they don't know who you are. They're like, who is Cindy West? Introduce yourself to us, and then we're going to just start talking. It's kind of funny. We actually kind of had a plan, and then I was like, we're just going to wing it because I just want to talk. I just want to get to know Cindy better and want my audience to as well. So kind of give the brief introduction, and then we'll talk a little bit more about who you are and your homeschool journey.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, first, I am so excited. This is going to be so much fun. So thanks for inviting me, first off. I am a 20 plus year homeschooler who happens to have an education degree, but I don't think you have to have that in order to homeschool. I have certainly enjoyed every single moment of it. I have enjoyed every single moment of it. But as I look back, I'm actually entering at the end of this year, I'm entering my retirement phase in the real life, day-to-day homeschooling world because I'm getting ready to graduate my 3rd and final kiddo, which is very bittersweet. But at this point in life, I can look back and say, I enjoyed this journey so much. And I cannot wait to continue helping moms who are not quite as far down the road as me to feel the same way by the time they get here. So really quickly, at the moment, I have a 27-year-old, a 24-year-old who is recently married, and an almost 18-year-old who will be graduating this year. And let's see, most of our homeschooling you could describe as an eclectic Charlotte Mason style. Gosh, we could talk about that some, about the things that I really loved that helped me choose that homeschooling style. But, oh, goodness, why don't you just ask me some questions? Because there's so many things I could tell you.
Yeah, what's your favorite color, Cindy?
Yeah. I don't know. In the winter, yellow, because I need sunshine.
Yeah. I like yellow too. I like orange though. Orange is my favorite color. Not like, construction orange, but like the orange behind you. If those who are watching on video, on YouTube. Yeah, I love it. Just a really pretty kind of sunset orange. So
yes.
But that's not a super important question though. A person's favorite color kind of does tell about them and their personality. If they see black, Well, they might be a little bit dark in their thinking. I don't know.
No, bright yellow.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. You said that that's your favorite winter color. What's your favorite summer color?
Oh, I would say pinks, purples, greens, just really anything that's vibrant. I love vibrance. I am a nature study girl.
Yes,
that is
you
something
are.
else we could eventually talk about.
Yeah.
So really anything that's just a beautiful nature color, I am all in.
Basically God's creation.
Yeah.
The outdoors.
Absolutely.
That's your favorite color. I love
the
that.
outdoors. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I want to first, let's jump into this. I would love to know, you said that you're educated as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you even get into homeschooling in the first place? Have you, and I can't remember, maybe we've talked about this in one of our past episodes together, but did you start homeschooling from the very beginning, or did you jump into it after your kids, were they in school for a while? Talk about that part of your journey.
So I taught in the public school system for 5 years, got my master's degree, and had a baby. And I think I taught for about 1.5 years until I decided, oh, mercy, the things I'm seeing happen here in my classroom, I don't want my children to be part of.
Right.
So we decided that I would come home with that one kiddo for at least a little while, and we would go from there. Then kiddo number 2 came along. And I always say that, we started homeschooling kindergarten. My husband was like, oh, okay, we can homeschool kindergarten, then we'll see. And then first grade, and then we'll see. Right. And then I think by the time it was either second or third grade came around, my husband went with me to a conference where Todd Wilson was speaking.
Oh, yeah.
And he was speaking directly to the men. I wasn't invited to that workshop. And he hammered the nail into, I think he called it the school bus. You know how some school buses have those little pop-out things?
Yes. Yeah.
I think he said, no, we're going to hammer that down so that we're not back and forth with 1 foot in the school bus and 1 foot out.
Yeah.
And it was after that conference that we were fully dedicated to the homeschool career. So my kids have not ever been in public school. I did homeschool from the beginning. And you know what? It's just by the Lord's grace that I listened to that first call where he nudged and said, I'd like you to consider quitting for a little while. And then my husband originally had deer in the headlight eyes and went, what? And then he prayed about it and said, okay, well, we can do this for a little while. Yeah. And, that snowballed into 20 plus years later. So I'm very thankful for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're at the end of your journey, which, oh man, it goes so fast.
It goes so fast.
I can't believe you have a 27-year-old. I mean, it just is shocking how quickly that time goes. And I'm so thankful. I was texting with a friend this morning and she was talking about how her, they just needed to kind of revamp, and she's got young kids. I want to say her oldest is maybe 8 or 9.
Okay.
But she said they just needed to kind of revamp their school day and their plan. And so she did. And she's like, and it's going great. And I was like, I love homeschooling for that, because you can keep reinventing the wheel.
You can.
You can just reinvent it however many times you want. And do it in a way that works best for your family for different seasons. And, it's such a blessing. And so you talked about how you've loved homeschooling. Obviously, you've had hard days, but as you look back, what are some of the greatest joys that you have in your memories of homeschooling your kids?
Wow, that's such a great question. First and foremost, the memories that we have together as a family that have turned into relationships that we still have together as a family that are very strong. That's going into what I can now see as generations of relationship that is strong, that is pointed towards the Lord in a way that's real. I don't know how to say that differently.
Yeah.
The relationships we built and the way our kids have been able to see our relationship with the Lord and how we treat each other and how we treat our community. And I feel like in some ways, even though I'll be finished homeschooling, my teaching career is not even close to being over because I was born to teach. And so them watching all of that gives this realness to relationship and to all relationships.
Yeah.
amongst ourselves and with God and with other people that is untradeable. I feel like I'm not saying that very well, but that first and foremost sticks out to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a relationship that you can't offer to that extent without homeschooling. Yeah. And no one else can offer that to your kids. Your kids will never, there's not a teacher in the world who looks back, 20 years later and says, man, I really enjoyed the relationship I had with that one student that I had that one year amongst the other 30 kids in my classroom.
Exactly.
It's not possible. I mean, they might have their favorites that they can remember, but they don't have a lifelong relationship with that one child. And as much as you can have great relationships with your kids if they're in school, but it's different. It's a different kind of relationship.
And I can already hear some people saying, okay, well, what leads to that? Yeah. And you guys, I'm just going to say, doing life with your kids.
Yes.
And, when you're doing life with your kids and you are home and you're able to see, oh, wow, we have a character issue, and you can sit down on the couch and you can read a book. I always point to like the little red hen. If you've got a kiddo that's lazy or selfish or whatever, read the little red hen and talk about how they are behaving, the characters are behaving versus what the Lord might want them to do. And all of a sudden you have this warm, cozy relationship building memory moment.
Yes.
That changes the game for them in their character. And it's little things like that.
Yep.
Here, there, and everywhere that you get to stop. You get to either purposely plan or you get to listen to the Lord's prompting and say, oh, we're going to sit down and do this right now.
Yeah.
And those things, they change that game in a way that no one else's relationship really can with your children.
Amen. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Have you tried CTC Math yet with your child? Here's a testimonial from another happy homeschool mom. Amber said, I'm absolutely thrilled with CTC Math. It's a rare find that I've used with my children for more than 5 years now. I have 6 children using CTC Math, and each child has found it easy to navigate and very applicable. Thank you so much for all that you are doing in providing quality math lessons for my children. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com. That's ctcmath.com. Join Apologia for the Homeschool Bootcamp, a free video series that provides practical guidance and wisdom from experienced homeschool parents. You'll discover how to equip your family for academic, social, and spiritual success. Plus, you'll discover how to build deeper and stronger family relationships. Homeschool Bootcamp covers how to break free from the public school mindset, daily planning, supporting students with learning challenges, homeschooling as a working parent, navigating the high school years, and much more. Find this incredible free homeschool resource at apologia.com/bootcamp. We are back with Cindy. So before the break, you were talking about just the memories that you were able to make with your kids and the relationships that you've been able to build with them, which I think is the greatest thing, because we build relationships with them. We teach them to build a relationship with the Lord. And those two things, like hands down, that is the greatest reason to home educate your kids and keep them at home with you. What are some of the other things that, just looking back, you're like, oh man, I'm so thankful that our family chose to home educate because of this?
Okay. What immediately popped into my mind is all 3 of my children were born with some gifts that became passions because they were gifts from the Lord.
Yeah.
And I was able to give them the time, space, and resources to chase those.
Yeah.
And each one of my current adult children, they've turned those things into careers. Yeah. So one just perchance found a passion for playing the guitar. And his guitar has led him down a path. He's not currently playing for a living, but he's in a music industry that's providing for his wife and him because of that passion that he had that we were able to nurture. My daughter had a passion for horses. We allowed that, time and space, and sometimes money. It didn't cost, my grandpa was the one who was paying for a lot of the horse stuff. So that didn't necessarily cost me a lot of money, but it did cost me some field trip time.
Sure.
It did cost me some organization and field trips. It did cost me a whole semester in high school of turning over her learning to her so that she could pursue that. She wanted an entire class credit on agriculture and not just horses, but agriculture in general. So me thinking out of the box and saying, okay, we're going to do some student-led learning. So it required of me some things that I may or may not have wanted necessarily to do.
Yeah.
But because I had the time to put into that myself and the time to give towards that for her, she's now the manager of our cattle farm that we live on.
Oh, wow.
And we've been able to turn that over to her.
Wow.
Because of the education she went on to get and the experience she's had over the years. I mean, it's incredible to be able to look backward and say, oh, some of those things really, really, really mattered.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then if I just think of a couple more, reading aloud with my children.
Yep.
Snuggled up on the couch, having that a regular practice. We have so many memories, and that's educationally a really good thing to do. Yeah. Two more things. Morning time, a morning time practice that included worship and Bible time and lots of other extraneous things. But those two things were a solid start to our day every single day. And I think it helped us all to maintain a practice of finding the Lord every morning, finding thankfulness, finding wisdom and instruction and all of those things.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I wanted to say is allowing my children to help every single day with the non-academic things. It could be anything.
Yeah.
Cooking, laundry, grass mowing, life. I have children who are completely capable in the kitchen, in the home, repairing small motors, all the things, because that also became part of the plan.
Right.
It wasn't just academics. So those are just, we could talk for a long time about this question.
It's so fun though, isn't it? To just go back and reminisce. And I know you're not done, you still have some time. Do you still do morning basket with your son, your senior?
We do
son?
a version of it. He's a senior. Okay. He is mostly on his own, but we still do maintain that meeting together for Bible time together.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, how many mothers and 18-year-old young men do that together?
Yeah. And I was getting ready to say, we've dropped that read aloud time, but that's not true. Right at the moment, we've decided to read a book called Entree Leadership together because he has some aspirations to be an entrepreneur and I'm an entrepreneur. And I said, well, how about we read this together? And he was, almost 18 years old. He wasn't like, he was like, okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Then you're learning together.
Cool. Yeah. Man, we're learning together.
It's so fun. It's so different this year with having just Lacey home, just homeschooling her because it's our first year, of course, with just the two of us. And I just read her. We've read every year for pretty much her whole life, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. Ooh. And it takes us, we read it in like 2 days, sometimes 1 day if we're really committed to it, but I'll usually split it into 2 days. And so I read it to her last week and it was so funny. We have a sofa in our guest room, schoolroom. And so she always will just snuggle up with a blanket and she'll kind of lay down, we have the same setup every day. She'll put her feet across my lap and I'll sit with the book and I'll read out loud to her. And she was dozing off and I kept saying, are you still with me? And she'd be like, yeah. And she could repeat the last few words that I said, so I kept reading, but her eyes were closed and usually her eyes are open. She's usually doing something, fiddling with something. Anyway, I was like, she's not even listening, but I just kept reading because, I love the book. And anyway, so yesterday we sat down and she was like, Mom, I did not get any of that last chapter. Can you reread it to me? And so I said, of course. And she said, I think I heard it, but I don't know. I was kind of falling asleep. So I read it. She was like, oh yeah, I didn't hear any of that when you read it the other day. So we read the last chapter again together. And it was just so fun. Like I love that time of just being with her, just enjoying this, she's still not tired of reading that book every single year. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. It is the greatest privilege, the greatest joy of my life is getting to have that time with my kids. So
And something else you just said was the grace factor right there. It could have been really easy for you to be frustrated and frustrated in the moment when she was falling asleep, or frustrated when she wanted you to repeat that. But that's another beauty of homeschooling, to be able to say, you know what, I've got a tired girl on my hand today. And that's okay. That's okay. If we need to repeat something, we have time to repeat something.
Yes.
And it's not going to ruin everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And they learn better when they're rested. So that's what I've learned. Like our audience knows I do not get my kids up early to make them learn, because they just won't. I mean, they're falling asleep on me. I'm falling asleep and it's just a disaster. So I'd rather her sleep until 10 o'clock and wake up rested and ready to learn. And then she is. I mean, like, once she's awake, she's up and she's ready. Yeah. And it's a much better day.
Teenagers know their time. They know the sleep they need. I've allowed a whole lot more of that on this end than I did with the older kids.
Right.
You do pick up some grace throughout the way.
Yeah. A super funny thing about that day where we were reading last week, The Best Christmas Pageant, was that night she didn't know, but we were having a surprise birthday party for her. Oh. And so as she was dozing off, I thought, she needs the sleep because she's going to be up really late tonight, because she had some friends staying the night, and it was going to be a very late night. And I knew that, but she didn't know that. So yesterday she said, did you let me sleep because you knew, because of my surprise party? I said, that's one of the reasons I for sure let you sleep, was because I knew you needed rest that night. But anyway, so it was fun. Yeah, we got to have a surprise party for her. The surprise party that we had to reschedule 3 times because we were sick the first 2 times we had scheduled for. Anyway, we are out of time, but we're going to come back on Wednesday, talk more with Cindy. And man, again, I am so blessed to have you as part of this team, Cindy. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell our audience where they can find out more about you.
Okay. OurJourneyWestward.com or Our Journey Westward. I'm usually on Instagram more than anything else.
Okay. And we'll put links to that in the show notes. And we will also put links to all of the past episodes we've done with Cindy, because we've talked about lots and lots of fun stuff. My favorite episode with you. No, I was going to say one, but I have 2 favorite episodes with you. My favorites are game schooling and the middle school years. You were part of our Homeschooling Through the Years series. Yeah. I might pick the middle school years, because that's where we're at. And you just totally knocked it out of the park on that one. It was so good. We got so much good feedback on that one. And moms just saying, I really needed to hear this. So we'll put links to those.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So you guys can go back and listen if you missed those episodes. But thank you guys so much for being with us. We will be back on Wednesday. Until then, have a great afternoon, and we will see you back here then. Bye.
We've got an urgent situation. If we knew we were in a war zone, which we are, because we live in the middle of a spiritual battle, we would not say, well, let's take a few days off while the battle's going on. We're called the spiritual battle. Let's step up and take responsibility for that.
Even if we're able to push the evildoers and the totalitarians back for another generation, if they've got the young people, it's over.
I often think about Daniel's parents, who you don't hear anything about. But they must have laid down the foundation for Daniel to be able to go into Babylon and not fall.
This is Yvette Hampton, host of The Thinking Dad. Join us for the first season at thinkingdad.net.
There are some who just push so hard on academics that they might create really smart kids, but do those kids, does smart equal wisdom? Does smart equal the ability to go out into the real world and do real world things?
Right.
Not always.
Right.
On the other hand, my kid's not going to go to college. I just know it. And they are 14 years old. Have you directly spoken with the Lord about that? Do you know what the Lord's plan is for your child?
Yeah.
Unless you have had direct communication with God about your child and you know exactly what the future is, then you have no business predicting their future, and they deserve to have an education that is at least college worthy.